Imagine prisoners that have spent their entire lives chained deep inside a cave. They have been chained so that they cannot see behind themselves, and they are forced to stare endlessly at the cave wall in front of them. Behind them, a fire is burning, and between the prisoners and the fire is a raised walkway. Now imagine that each day, a menagerie of objects crosses the walkway. Animals, and people carrying their wares to market. Their shapes create an intricate shadow play on the wall in front of the prisoners. This is the only world that the prisoners have ever known. The shadows and the echoes of unseen objects. Now, imagine that a prisoner is released. After some time adjusting to the blinding light, the freed prisoner will begin to experience the world outside of the cave for the very first time. And it is like nothing he could have ever imagined. With his new perception of the world, the man will of course want to return to his friends to share his incredible discoveries. But the prisoners cannot recognize their old friend. He appears as all things do. His voice is a distorted echo, and his body is a grotesque shadow. They cannot understand his fantastic stories of the world outside of the cave. To them, it will never exist. This, of course, does not make the world outside of the cave any less real.
Hey everybody, this is Kyle, aka Vulcan Wolverine, and I have with me Brian too. We're going to have a conversation today about a couple of things, and I think we should just get started. Go ahead, Brian.
Hi, this is Brian too. Good to be with you again, Kyle. We're going to try to pick up where we left off in our last interview, where we discussed basically a few things regarding the technology and that procession that everybody thought was so crazy. And when in fact, if they understood anything about Swiss culture and the Gothard past, they would have known that that was a play off of the Devil's Bridge. Remember that the Illuminati, the so-called elite, they love to broadcast their plans. They love symbolism. They love and they're mostly not Satanists at all. Most of them are just Luciferian. They participate in Satanism and satanic ritual abuse and all that entails, but mostly they're just Luciferians.
And Brian, can I tell you something? I saw, the Michelangelo God and Adam, where God is reaching towards Adam. The part with God is in the shape of a brain. It's actually lines up with the shape of a brain. So
in the video you're talking in that procession.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm talking about like Michelangelo. You know the famous painting where God is reaching for Adam, and it's like on the Sistine Chapel, right? God is in the shape of a brain. Like God and the angels are in the exact shape of a brain.
I don't think Michelangelo. I don't think he's in on this, man.
No, I think that it goes to what you were saying about the cabal worships the mind. Luciferians worship the mind. They worship intellect. And if you look at that painting, it's like that. But go ahead. I'll show that on a later video.
Okay, all right. Well, there are certain models and principles that people have to understand in order to understand what they're doing to you. People who are targeted with the technology, if they don't have a basic understanding of the technology and the tactics, then they're just doomed. They're doomed. They have no chance of being able to survive or cope, much less fight back. And so from the hypergame theory to, the allegory of the cave, these are things that I've mentioned, to the Occam razor principle and other models of deception and manipulation. If a person could just get a basic understanding of those principles and those models, then they can begin to understand how they're being attacked and how to fight back. Because a large part of what they do, I mean, a very large part of what they do is just discrediting the victim, which they're able to do because those tactics and the technology itself that they use against the victim are modeled and applied in such a way as to range from the plausible to the absurd. Okay, from their tactics, literally, they start at the plausible, but they range all the way to the absurd. I've had them place a pair of purple panties in my luggage, okay, that was lost for 2 weeks, and I had to wait 2 weeks for in California. And when it showed up, there was a purple a pair of panties with the word "fabulous" on the back of it. Now, why would you do such an absurd thing? Well, they want to provoke the victim with these scripted mind games, provoke the victim into coherent patterns of thought, so that the system, their brain, the supercomputer their brain is remotely tied to, this exascale system of remote neural networks, this via this bi-directional stream of energy, their brain is remotely tied to for life, can download all those synaptic responses back into its database as it creates this cognitive model, this copycat parallel twin personality of the victim's human soul. When I say human soul, I mean essentially three things: will, intellect, and emotion. They're building a cognitive model of the victim's will, intellect, and emotion to achieve why? To achieve direct behavioral control over the victim. Because remember, this is training, research, and development.
Can I ask you a question about the training and research and development on so many people? Like, they're mapping so many people's brains, and it's like it's going into this big, the supercomputers. Aside from teaching the AI how to think more like a human brain, what else, are they trying to do? Mapping so many brains like that.
Well, essentially, it's based on three things: neuroscience, psychology, and what's called satanic ritual abuse. So a large part of what they're doing is the training, research, and development. And that entails three things: censorship, memory management, and direct behavioral control. So if you ask what it is they're trying to do, well, what else are they doing? Let me just give you everything that they're doing, okay, and sum it up in three categories. Because censorship, memory management, and direct behavioral control is everything they're doing to their victims, no matter who's targeted, no matter what program they place you in. And targeted individuals are placed in multiple programs. There's never just one program.
Right.
So you'll go from beta programming to omega programming. Okay, so what they're doing is essentially three things to every single targeted individual. And that is censorship, memory management, and direct behavioral control. Censorship, therefore, is just the ability of the supercomputer or the hive mind teams, okay, when they manually inject. Most of the torture and the terror, it's all run by supercomputers. But what they're doing with censorship is basically they're censoring the activities of the victim. That's why it's called censorship. They're censoring the daily actions, the daily activities of the victim, to prevent the victim from engaging in daily actions and daily activities which interfere with their technology. Okay, so for example, if you start listening to pleasing music, well, they need to stop that. Okay, they need to censor that. It breaks brain entrainment with the system. If you start listening to Christian music, which is pleasing in nature, it not only breaks brain entrainment with a supercomputer, it also begins to depattern or deconstruct the neuro-programming. Because remember, they're trying to reformat your brain rewire your memory and thought process. And then thirdly, the direct behavioral control is the end result of that cognitive model being completed, at which point, I skipped one, I'm sorry. And memory management is the second thing they're doing. So get a hold of censorship. Get a hold of that. They're going to use trauma. They're going to use disruptions and chaos. They're going to use drowsiness, dizziness, et cetera, all of these things to censor your activities. That's not just your behavior they're trying to censor. Okay, it's also your thoughts. So censorship is a very big category. Okay, so if they want to censor your memory and thought process, they want to prevent you from thinking upon things that interfere with the narrative of their technology. So, for example, if you begin to think of something, they'll just hit you. The system will target you with a pulse of energy, and it'll clear the neural pathways. Okay, that's censorship. It's called electronic dissolution of memory, and there are other names for it, EDM. And so they're censoring not just your behavior, okay, which can interfere with their technology, like outdoor activities, which dampen the neural link between the victim's brain and the supercomputer, dancing and singing, reading a book. All of these external activities dampen or disrupt their technology, and they need to stop or minimize that. And the way they do that is through censorship. So the first thing you're doing to every single victim, no matter what program you're involved in, is censorship. They're going to censor your daily activities and your daily actions. They're going to censor your memory and thought.
So that they can replace them, so that they can put in what they
to
want.
Erase.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to use pain and trauma, drowsiness, etc., to erase memory. They're going to use pain and trauma, drowsiness, dizziness, etc., to disrupt memory, meaning to disrupt your continuity of thought, etc. It just goes on and on. That's called censorship. Right. And it's essentially two things. It's censoring behavior, censoring memory, it's censoring your thoughts and emotions. Okay. Second thing they're doing is memory management. Okay. And memory management is essentially one thing that's so much more than this. But if you start talking to people about it, get into specific details. And I'm no expert. I'm just going off the research of experts and my own personal experience. But I'm not going to get into specific details because people get lost in the details. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to give the broad overview of what memory management is. And it's essentially one thing. Memory management, okay, is the blocking of real memories and injecting with fabricated or falsified memories. Okay. Now, those are the two biggest words in mind control. That if a targeted individual, a mind control victim, can get a grasp, can get a hold of, can grasp onto, can mentally, picture and understand. Fabricated and falsified are the two biggest, most important words in CIA mind control because it involves everything they're doing. Even the street theater is fabricated or falsified. Okay, but that's what memory management is. It's blocking real memories, your memory and thought, your normal memory and thought process. Okay, and it's interfering with and it's injecting at the same time with fabricated and falsified memories. Okay, so once you understand, that remember, mind control is about disrupting your memory and thought process. And in order to disrupt your memory and thought process, the technology has to work properly. And that stream of energy cannot be dampened. It cannot be disrupted. Okay. So memory management means they're injecting these memories, these emotions, your own previous brainwaves. They're now artificial brainwaves because the system has, remember, any set of brainwaves can be copied, held, and perpetually replayed in the victim's brain. So the supercomputer
they match ours, like it matches our brainwaves.
Right. So the impulse ejections, the memory references, are simply artificial brainwaves. Okay, injected via this bidirectional link, this bidirectional stream of energy. Okay, back into your brain, your subconscious, to drive by force your memory and thought process. Okay, to achieve direct behavioral control over you. Okay, now that's the end result. Okay, and once they achieve direct behavioral control over you, it gets real bad from that point. Okay, Brian, it gets real bad.
Could you speak on like perception management? I mean, is that exactly the same thing as memory management? Because I've experienced a lot of like emotional conditioning mixed with visual conditioning, right? And it seems to be like they want to manage how you see the situation, how you feel about the situation, your motivation, and things like that. And like I've always kind of thought of that as perception management, you know?
Well, that's a good way to put it because really that's what they're doing. They're trying to alter your daily motives and what emotional perceptions.
Yeah, that's been a
Okay,
big thing for me. Like what they do
so
is like, yeah, yeah,
no, but people don't understand this. They don't understand that this that's essentially what they're trying to do. To daily motives and emotional perceptions with these motivational impulses. Okay, so if they can begin to understand that these memory attacks are happening through memory management, the blocking of real memories and emotions, and the injecting of false or fabricated memories and emotions. And when I say emotions, I mean impulses. Okay, then they can recognize modification of their active memory in real time. They can see it happening. They recognize. It takes a great deal of because 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 the system is designed through drowsiness and other methods to cause you to lose time perception. Okay, to briefly, in a split second. So to force to use drowsiness or trauma to place your brain in a state of functional disorientation, to get you to respond, to influence you to respond to the injected impulse for memory, a remote neural attack, the memory reference, whatever it may be, forced speech, for example.
right.
Okay, so they're going to test that on you frequently every day. Every day, you're being attacked. Mind control victims, trauma-based mind control victims are being attacked hundreds of times a day
Hmm.
and don't even know it. Okay, they don't even know it.
Well,
Okay, they have no idea.
I have those memory attacks. Like they'll do it when I feed my dog or if I take medication. They'll be practicing making me forget if I did it. So all the time practicing that memory dissolution, memory management every day. You know.
Well, I remember censorship. They're attempting to restrict your normal memory and thought process. What does that mean? Your normal choices, your
Hmm.
normal everyday choices, your normal everyday emotions. What are choices? They're memories. You make choices based on your previous memories of whatever those choices were. You choose your coffee. You choose your favorite coffee shop, your favorite cafe based on your previous choice of that cafe before, right? So
Hmm.
so basically, what they're doing is they're targeting your working memory. We call it active memory. Okay, so if a person can begin to see, understand that these are artificial memories, these are artificial emotions, then they can begin to counter. They can begin to redirect. They can begin to counter the technology. So the memory references the fabricated or falsified, big difference between fabricated and falsified, okay? The fabricated or falsified memory references, that's the system's output. These are
Brian,
mental,
hold on.
these are
Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Zoom is telling me that this meeting is going to end in 10 minutes. We've been going for about 15 minutes. Um, we're gonna
interesting.
we have it's not like I don't think it's anything gaslighting. It's just Zoom. I don't have a Zoom account, and I thought we could just do a whole meeting. So we need to do this on StreamYard. I'm sorry, dude. Um,
Okay, why don't we just finish this Zoom and then you can just
okay.
you could take the 30 minutes of Zoom and add it to the StreamYard.
Part one and part
So
two. Okay, go ahead.
yeah,
Keep going.
yeah. So so
Sorry about that.
that's all right, man. That's all right. So uh but anyway, that's what they're doing. The memory, the mental suggestions are the system's output. The system is attacking you with mental suggestion. But you don't realize it because it's mostly at the subconscious level. Okay. If you can recognize these mental suggestions are happening, then you can begin to counter the your understanding of the fact that it's happening will allow you to counter or at least control and ultimately to defeat their technology. Okay. These mental suggestions are constantly deceiving you with.
Hmm.
Okay, so for example, formulation, that's the first part of remote neural monitoring, remote neural manipulation. If you're dealing with remote neural monitoring, in order to understand remote neural manipulation, you have to understand remote neural monitoring. And remote neural monitoring is made up of stages, and they're not downloading constantly all of your thoughts 24/7. They don't have enough space in their sophisticated and advanced system computers. They don't have enough space to store the thoughts of millions of people, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So they target you in cycles. And that cycle will begin with trauma or chaos, and it will end with trauma or chaos. Those are called verification markers and verification triggers. Okay, so formulation being the first stage of remote neural monitoring, for example, that's simply the ability of the supercomputer. Formulation, okay, is the first stage of remote neural monitoring, and it's essentially the ability of the system, to the supercomputer that's attacking you, to collect data regarding your mind, your memory and thought process, to collect and catalog the memory references that you're thinking. As it downloads them back into its supercomputer, okay, it begins to, if that's collection, then it begins to catalog them, meaning it begins to identify and develop, and then it begins to integrate them. It's called predictive integration. Okay, that's the next stage. And basically, it's the interpretation of the data that they use to deceive you with. Okay, so whatever thoughts and fabricated or falsified thoughts and impulses that they use, the interpretation of that data is used. And that's how they build a cognitive model of your brain. So formulation and predictive integration, that's key to understand if you're going to understand remote neural monitoring. Okay, so the collection and cataloging of data regarding the memory references of the victim is formulation. The interpretation of the data regarding the memory references of the victim is predictive integration.
Okay. So I mean, they're measuring our mental responses, our emotional responses, to triggers that they're putting in the brain, kind of basically.
Right. Well, the triggers that won't be memory references or emotion or motivational impulses. The triggers will be visual, verbal sequences. Okay, so there's a big difference. They'll use, for example, textual. They'll use signs, symbols, colors, etc. One-lighted cars, whatever they can to capture your attention. Whatever they think you will respond to is what they will use against you. Okay, so that's key. That's absolutely key to grab hold of, because people don't. If people they often say that I'm being mind controlled. No, you're not. You're not being constantly mind controlled. You're being constantly monitored. You're not being constantly mind controlled. Mind control happens at specific intervals. Okay, so the system is designed to capture whatever you're thinking. So any set of brainwaves can be remotely captured, held by the supercomputer, and then perpetually replayed in your brain. So it's called thought-triggered attacks. So as you think of something, the system captures that memory, that set of brainwaves, which it's already verified. Okay, he's thinking about peanut butter or whatever. Okay, and then the system begins to inject with these mental suggestions: peanut butter brittle, peanut butter candy, peanut butter ice cream. You didn't think of any of those things. You just thought of peanut butter. Okay, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, peanut butter this, and so these are called thought-triggered attacks. Now they don't care anything about peanut butter. They care about what they care about is their technology. Okay, but these are called thought-triggered attacks, and whatever you're thinking about, the system captures that set of brainwaves, that set of thoughts, that set of emotions. Okay, and then it injects immediately at speed of light. Energy travels at speed of light with these mental suggestions, these thought-triggered attacks. Why? To deceive and manipulate you. You understand? Now, in addition to that, it uses trauma to achieve its objectives. Anything which lowers a person's energy level or vitality, makes you drowsy, makes you disoriented. That makes you more susceptible to their technology. Remember last week we talked about, their technology works best at theta state, 4 to 7 hertz theta state, right, where the person is super relaxed or super drowsy. That's what I mean when I say anything which lowers your your energy level or your vitality makes you more susceptible to their technology. Okay, so that's what they're going to do. They're basically, the system is designed just to keep constantly provoking you, to keep probing you for responses, to keep injecting over and over again. And that's one of the fatal flaws of their technology. One of the fatal flaws of their technology is the fact that it relies on repetitive reinforcement. It relies on patterns.
Mhm.
Okay, it relies on patterns. One response is not enough. They need multiple patterns of responses from you in order to determine coherent patterns of thought.
But the
So
way
so
that I
they
see
need
that, Brian, is the brain is like always thinking. So it's like we can't stop thinking, and it's gonna have like our thinking is gonna be in patterns, all the time. No matter if our actions have patterns to them, our thoughts, are always gonna have patterns to them.
well,
Do you think
yes and
so?
no. Yes and no. But let me
Okay.
explain. It doesn't matter what you're thinking or what you're doing. Listen, it cannot be chaotic and random. You can respond all day to chaotic and random patterns and events that happen in your life. That
Hmm.
doesn't help their technology one bit because they can't verify it. In order for them to be able to verify your memory and thought process so that they can download those thoughts and emotions, those brainwaves, and integrate them back into R&M data as they build this cognitive model, in order for that to happen, they have to be able to verify those responses are consistent.
Hmm.
Before anything else happens, they've got to verify they're consistent. And the only way they can verify they're consistent is to have you respond to their specific impulse injections. In other words, you have to speak or say something, engage in some type of verbalization related action to whatever mental suggestion they hit you with. Okay, you have to respond to their organized thought, their their situational scenarios, their conversational scenarios. If the situation and conversation going on around you is random and chaotic and they're not plugged into it, they cannot verify those responses. Doesn't matter whether they believe that their responses are consistent or not, they have to verify them.
They
It's a
have to
supercomputer.
verify them in real time, not just the remote attackers verifying your emotions and how you're reacting, and they have to verify it physically with gang stalkers like that with surveillance.
Right, exactly. Well, not just with organized stalkers and cyber stalking, which I mean, I see this going on so much on these target individual channels. They're just being run over with chatterbots. I think they're talking to real people. It's just unbelievable.
Hmm.
Okay, but that's necessary for their technology to work properly. You have to respond. Listen, if they can't get you to respond, their technology fails. It's simple as that. I mean, it doesn't just disrupt their technology. The technology will fail without your response to their specific stimuli, whatever it may be, conversational.